Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brant County Council meeting of July the 25th, 2023. Attendance has been taken, noting that Councillor Kyle is in France or Germany or somewhere, and she's going to try to zoom in, but she's been going to do that for the last two meetings, so I wouldn't hold your breath. With that being said, everyone else is present, which takes us to number 2 on the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything to add to the agenda? Seeing nothing. All those in favor of the agenda? Oh, Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell that the County of Brant Council agenda and addendum for July 25th, 2023 be approved.
Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Taking us to number 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. Does anyone? Councillor Garneau.
Thank you. I have 4.3 and 13.4 due to conflicts with our business. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other conflicts? I'm sure the clerk will remind me when we get close to your conflicts, Councillor Garneau. Number 4, the first, we have 3 delegations tonight. One is a presentation and 2 are speakers. I'd just like to remind the speakers that you have 10 minutes to speak. Terrible things happen to you after the 11th minute. So the first people that are going to come up are Jeff and Nancy from 526 Scenic Drive. If you'd like to come up to the podium, please, and give us your full name and your full address, and then we'll begin, knowing that you don't want to go over 10 minutes.
Okay, we're Jeff and Nancy Weasel. We're actually from 524 Scenic Drive in St. George. And thank you for the time this evening. I'll try to be much less than 10 minutes. So what we're here about, we live at 524 Scenic Drive, and at 526 Scenic Drive, there was a very large parcel of land, about 16 acres. And a couple of years ago, it was subdivided, and 2 lots were severed off, and they were listed as 526-1, 526-2, as all part of that parcel. And that's fine and great. But sometime in 2023, the numbering on those 2 lots went from 526-1 and 2 to 524 B and C. So it's created a little bit of problems for us. We've already had 4 deliveries. I mean, if the shingles and other things would have been free, that might not have been too much of a problem. But you know, we're getting deliveries we shouldn't get. And I have a concern, especially for my business, on 2 aspects: that checks go to the wrong place in the future, or B, I may have to re-register with Public Works Goods and Services Canada for our business. That could be a little bit of a headache. So what my ask of council is to have these 2 properties addressed as part of 526. They were part of 526. They're a subset of 526. In my mind, they should be 526-1 and 2. They were never part of 524 Scenic Drive. We've been on that location since 2014, bought the property in 2012. It's always been 524 and next door 526. It does cause us a little bit of trouble right now, and I expect that to worsen in the future. We already have enough issues with 524 Scenic Drive Mail going to 524 East River Road or Blue Lake Road and vice versa. So we do things there. Don't need to command another little bit of problem. To me, that address really should have been, the burden to hold that, whatever the address numbers should be, or readdressing should have been on the severed lots. Maybe when Brenner Holdings severed it a couple of years ago, they could have been renumbered 526, 528, 530, because it is the last house on the road as well, 526 Scenic Drive. So that's my ask. If we could look at that, have it numbered as part of 526, and so that we can keep 524 clean as it has been for the last 10 years or more. And that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? I've only known you 5 minutes, and 524 is already causing me trouble. Can't imagine living there. Does it affect anyone else if we change the number? Is there anyone else on your road that's affected by?
Well, the only one would be the two buildings that are under construction, but they're under construction. No, nothing's being mailed to them yet.
I'm not sure about the other.
I'm not sure about the other owner at 526.
He's been there a couple of years, I think.
He's been there 2 years, but if it's a subset of his, then he bought the property knowing he had 2 lots in front of it.
Right.
So,
Are there any other questions from council? Councilor Miller, you're first.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters. So just to be clear, the numbers for Scenic Drive, they start at Highway 24,
yes, that's correct, at Highway 24, and
and
then
then
come
of course it runs all the way to
up East River Road.
East River Road. So if they were to be numbered higher than yours, there should be no issues, correct?
That's correct. And 526 is actually the last property right now. So if you went 526, 528, 530,
Okay, it seems like a simple thing, so I'll leave it at that.
yeah. I found nothing in life is ever really that simple, but if you could look into it.
Are there any other questions? Looking for a motion. Councilor McAlpine,
Could we direct this to planning to have them look at it?
send it to planning,
Yeah.
seeking a seconder. Councilor Bell, everyone's in agreement. We're going to send it to planning. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll hear back from our planners.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. The second presenter is going to be a presenter of an award for us. If you'd like to come to the podium, bring your award, and when you get here, you can tell us your name and why you're here. That'd be great.
I think it's on, yes. Thank you very much for having us here this evening. I'm Patricia McCarney from Toronto. We're happy to be with you this evening, Mayor Bailey, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. We're from the World Council on City Data, or the WCCD as it's usually called, and we're here to present the certification for ISO 37120, which really marks the County of Brant as a fantastic data-driven city and a global network of cities that we're working with. And my colleague here, Justine, is also with me tonight, who will actually show you some celebratory data points, which they're pretty awesome for the County of Brant. When we start to compare this apples to apples data across the world, County of Brant really is punching above its weight with so many of these big cities that we work with around the world. So it's really a pleasure to be here. And so on behalf of the WCCD, we're pleased to join you for this evening to offer our congratulations on the County of Brant's WCCD ISO 37120 Platinum certification, bringing Brant to 4 consecutive years of data. This data continuity is really, really important and so vital for planning and management, because you start to see incredible trend lines and how you're moving the needle on so many incredible points. So this certification is a true demonstration of Brant's dedication to building high caliber data that informs planning, informs management across the city, and really drives sustainable development and prosperity into the future for all of your residents. And I would be remiss if I did not address at the very outset here the incredible dedication of all your staff, Mayor Bailey. The staff across the city have been really dedicated to building this data set. Including the expertise of Delia Riche and as the development liaison under the leadership of the CAO, Alison Newton. Just a fantastic partnership with all of the staff. Move to the next slide. This is marking 4 years of certification, as I mentioned. So This is really quite incredible. There's only a few cities that have 6 to 8 years, some of the big ones that we started with way back in 2014. So the County of Brant is already at 4 years, which is fantastic to see. Once you get to 5 years, that's kind of the magic moment when you can start to also do predictive analytics and start to think, where do we want to be in 2030? Where do we want to be in 2025 even? We can start to project. So this standard is ISO 37120. Just a little bit of notes on that, just so you know what this is all about. This is our first time here in person. With COVID, we never came to do this certification, so it's really a pleasure to be here. This standard is around city services and quality of life. It's really built as performance management, key performance indicators. And this is really a global first. It was the first ISO standard out of Geneva to ever be developed for city data. We led its development in ISO, and once we achieved the publication, we began operationalizing this standard in cities worldwide. And we're now in 40 countries. We're implementing it in over 100 cities that have been certified. So the County of Brant is part of an incredible network of cities and data-driven cities across the world. We started with London and Dubai and some of the biggest cities in the world. And then we started to roll it out to cities, smaller communities in Canada. Shawinigan was one of the first to step up. And we've been working with cities all across the world. So for the first time, this standard equips municipalities worldwide with fully standardized, globally comparable, therefore, and independently verified data. In other words, this is the first time that municipalities across the globe are equipped with apples-to-apples data, which really builds incredible opportunities for benchmarking. The next slide is really about the series of standards that we've been developing since 2014. So we've now added 2 more to the roster, mostly by popular demand. Cities started asking us, what about key performance indicators around smart cities, as that smart city agenda was rising globally. And then most importantly, recently is the resilience standard. This has become really popular, not just because of COVID, but because so much of climate is hitting the ground in our communities around the world. So flooding, tornadoes, in the case of Vaughan, who have adopted ISO 37123 on resilient cities. And we built that with the United Nations in partnership, UNDRR. It's the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Group out of Geneva. That's the agency in the UN that's responsible for resilient cities. And they helped us write the KPIs, and now they're helping us to roll this out and implement it. It would be a great pleasure to welcome Brant to adoption of these other 2 standards. And in particular, I think the resilience one is quite important these days. And I think I should also mention we have a new standard on ESG, environment and social governance, which makes up the ISO 37120 series. And this has come about again because of popular demand. Cities are asking to get involved in the ESG debenture markets and issuing green bonds and social bonds and sustainability bonds to help finance pretty vital capital projects in the cities. So ESG is coming down the pipeline. It'll be again a global first. It's the first ISO standard ever developed for cities on ESG. I'm going as fast as I can. So the UNDRR, this partner, they've created a program called Making Cities Resilient, MCR 2030. And I just wanted to mention that as cities become certified under ISO 37123, they're becoming part of this great UN network of resilient cities to help think about risk and how to avert risk in communities of all sizes across the world. So in this standard, the first standard is about 104 KPIs, but overall of all of those standards, there's 252 KPIs now, which allows for efficiencies in reporting across our cities. And the last thing I'm going to say is around really, now that you're 4 years certified, the big question is, how can we help you to use that data? How can this city put this data to work? How can the county put the data to work? 4 years is really quite admirable. It's a fantastic opportunity. So just to let you know, there's we asked our cities around the world, how are you using this data? How would you like to use the data? The very first thing that comes up is economic development. I'm looking at Zach, who was invited us here for the agricultural forum last year with all of these agricultural areas pivoting to incredible, it was an amazing few days here. Economic development is the first thing that they say. We want to use this data to promote investment in our community. We want to build jobs, we want to attract businesses, etc. The second way the cities are using it is around infrastructure investment to leverage senior levels of government for infrastructure around often stormwater, etc., around the resilience agenda. And cities are also increasingly active on the global front to map the indicators to the Sustainable Development Goals and to the climate agendas. So we've been helping them with that. Certainly internal benchmarking with these trend analysis become very important. You'll see some of that when Justine shows you some of these data points. Global benchmarking, and increasingly Markham and Vaughan and other cities in the GTA have asked us to help them think about strategic planning. How do you embed data, numeric, high caliber numeric performance indicators into the strat plans? Because quite often, there's lofty goals. We want to be here by 2030, but how do we track that with numbers? So we've been helping them with that. So I just want to mention that on the investment side, we've developed something called the Investment Attraction Tool to help cities to use this data to situate and really brag about how wonderful this community is to move to. So we've taken these 5 domains around mobility and quality of life, etc., talent pool, education, health, etc., to really showcase why it's important to move to this community. So we're happy to share that with you and to work through some of those applications with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it for 2 minutes to Justine to really show you some of the celebratory data points, and then I'll just return to present the certification to you.
Thank you, Patricia, and good evening, Mayor Bailey, councilors, ladies and gentlemen. It's really been a pleasure collaborating with the County of Brant over the past 4 years of certification. And as Patricia mentioned, today I'll highlight some of the noteworthy and celebratory data points that showcase the county's leadership really in Canada and globally. These data points additionally align with the County of Brant's strategic plan priorities and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Between the reporting years of 2019 and 2021, as you can see on the graph here, the number of businesses in Brant increased by over 200. This really remarkable growth demonstrates the county's successful pursuit of its strategic goal to prioritize economic growth, and it really serves as a clear indication of the county's strong dedication to and active involvement with the local business community. A commitment to prosperity for local residents is additionally clearly demonstrated by this data point, the percentage of the city population living below the Canadian poverty line. The County of Brant really stands out as a Canadian leader, surpassing large cities such as St. John's, Toronto, and Halifax, as well as smaller cities with comparable population sizes. Remarkably, Brant has a poverty rate that is nearly half of the Canadian average, truly highlighting its dedication to ensuring the well-being of its residents. Demonstrating achievement on the strategic plan's objective of preparing youth for a prosperous future, Brant has consistently seen a yearly decline in the student-teacher ratio across its primary schools. This notable trend signifies a reduction in the number of students assigned to each teacher, really showcasing Brant's commitment to fostering a robust educational system that places a high value on student success. This trend is further evidenced through this indicator, secondary school completion rate, illustrating a consistent rise in high school graduation rates over time. Really impressively, in just 4 years, there's been an increase of nearly 5% in the number of students who are successfully completing their high school education in Brant. Next, to support your strategic goal of sustainable and managed growth, we look at this indicator which measures fine particulate matter in the air. High concentrations of fine particulate matter are associated with respiratory and cardiovascular issues, while lower concentrations indicate clean and healthy air. As you can see with the green tick, that's Brant there. Brant has one of the lowest levels of fine particulate matter of all cities in the WCC network in Canada and globally, pointing to the city's excellent air quality. And then lastly, I want to highlight a crucial indicator that demonstrates Brant's exceptional commitment to providing sustainable transit options, kilometers of bicycle paths and lanes. Brant stands out really as a Canadian and global leader when normalized by population, surpassing other notable cities such as St. John's, Halifax, Dubai, Porto, Amsterdam, and Rotterdam, among others, in terms of bicycle infrastructure. This remarkable achievement showcases the county's dedication to the strategic priority of maintaining an efficient and safe transit system. By offering a more extensive network of bicycle paths and lanes, Brant is actively promoting eco-friendly and healthy commuting alternatives for residents. So it's really a pleasure to be with you all today to explore Brant's exceptional data. And now I'll turn it back to Dr. McCartney for the ceremonial component of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Justine. And on behalf of the WCCD, once again, Mayor Bailey, congratulations. Your leadership and your commitment to this critical work will be an example to cities across Canada, but also across the globe. It's my pleasure to now award you with the Platinum certification, which is for the reporting year 2022. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm accepting this award on behalf of my entire council. We're very proud of our council, and we get a lot of work done, and we're exceptionally proud of our staff. We have a wonderful staff, including Allison, as you know, and we're just very grateful for the 4th year running. So thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to, thank you, staff, by the way. It's nice to have 4 of them in a row. Yeah, if I can just have a motion to receive the delegation. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Coleman, all those in favor? Opposed, carried, thank you. It takes us to number 4.3 on our agenda, and that's Bruno from 1272. I'm sorry? Oh. Councillor Garneau is stepping away from the horseshoe. And if you could state your full name, please, and your address.
My name is Bruno Artenosi. My address is 34 Clearview Heights, King City, Ontario. Mayor Bailey, thank you very much for allowing me to speak to this matter, and members of council and staff as well. My request evolved from a meeting that we held yesterday morning with the Director Vaughn, Planner Shannon LaBelle, and attended by Councillor Coleman, and also the owner of 1272 Colburn Street. It concerns a severance matter for a parcel that is landlocked that is proposed to be added to the property known as 1272 Colburn Street. The parcel right now is part of the address known as 38 Papel Road. There seems to be no objection from a planning point of view, either from staff or any other agency that's commented. We filed back in November of 2022, and there's been an impasse in process in the severance application because staff has been of the view that the rezoning should be done first. The 2 zonings of the 2 properties are inconsistent. The owners do not have any objection to a rezoning of the parcel to be consistent with that, with the zoning of the property to which it is being proposed to be added to. The impasse is what comes first, the severance or the rezoning application. We have been in abeyance for the last 8 months now because they've been advised that the zoning should be the trigger to finalize the severance. Director Vaughn suggested that I approach council this evening to see if it would be your pleasure to allow the application for severance to be processed, fully understanding that there would be a condition that it would have to be rezoned. That's pretty well it. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than pleased to answer them.
I think there could be a couple of questions from Council. Anyone have any questions? No? Okay, knowing that staff is going to bring a report on this later, it's just maybe not quite the way we usually do it. We usually do it the other way around with the zoning and then the severance. But you've brought it forward and we heard you and there's no questions. I'm looking for a motion to receive the information. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Howes, no further comments? Call those all in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
You'll hear back from planning, I'm sure. Thank you. That takes us to number 5 on the agenda, which is the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move by myself, second by Councilor Miller, that the County of Brant Council minutes of June 27th and July 11th, 2023 be approved.
Any questions for those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 6 is the business arising from those moments of the minutes. None? All those in favor? Opposed? Takes us to number 7.1, consent items to be approved, and we don't have any, which takes us to 7.2, which is consent items to be received, and we have 10. Does anyone want any of them separated? Councillor Miller?
No need to separate on my behalf, Mr. Mayor, but I do have a comment on 7.2.3 and a question on 7.2.10.
Okay. Any other questions? Any to be separated? Let's vote on everything but 3 and 10. All those in favor? Opposed? And we're going to go back to 3. Councillor Miller?
Just that's from the town of Caledon, which I should point out has also won a platinum level certification from the World Council on City Data. But having said that, it's an interesting resolution from the town of Caledon, and I hope everybody did read it. Simply because Caledon, I think, is a lot like Brant. It's very rural, a lot of agriculture. In fact, our biggest broccoli producer is from the town of Caledon. But they are maybe closer to a big city. So if you want to see maybe some of the way things go, I think looking at Caledon and seeing some of the problems they're having, I think it's a good indicator of some of the problems we may be having. So I thought, like I said, I thought it was quite interesting. And then the second point, it's on 7.2.10, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask, is this, if I read this correctly, are we to appoint another council member to the Police Services Board? Is that what I'm reading in 2024? And I'm not.
Yeah, Cindy's here. This has been a discussion that's been going on for a while. Cindy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Staff have actually followed up with the Solicitor General following receipt of this letter because it does not align with what Council had proposed. We had proposed 2 appointees from Council, 2 provincial appointees, and 2 community members. So I did get in touch with one of their staff Friday, and they're looking into it just to see if it was an error on their part or if it was intended. So when I receive something back, I can advise Council.
Okay, I'm glad I brought that up. Thank you.
Any other questions for 3 or 10? Seeing none, call the motion. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor McAlpine. Sorry? Oh, okay, you can move it.
Moved by myself and second by Councilor Chambers that items 7.2.1 to 7.2.10 be received as information.
Thank you. So we did separate, and now it's 3 and 10, and then they'll all be done. All those in favor? Thanks, Councilor McAlpine. Takes us to number 8, committee reports, and Councilor Miller, you have your report for the paramedics.
Yeah, it's just minutes. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Pierce, that the minutes from the Paramedic Services Committee meeting on July 5th, 2023 be received as information.
Are there any questions to Councilor Miller on the paramedics minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Which takes us to 8.2, which is Councilor Chambers for the Planning and Development Committee.
Mr. Mayor, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McAlpine that the Planning and Development Committee report of July 11th be approved.
Are there any questions to Councillor Chambers on his report? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Takes us to 8.3, which is Administration and Operations Committee, and that is Councillor Pierce, isn't it?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Howes, that the Administration and Operations Committee report of July 18th be approved.
Any questions to Councillor Pierce on his report? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Pierce. Item 9.9, which refers to King Edward Street and Dundas Street West intersection improvements. Some of you may know that this particular report was reported in the Paris Independent this past weekend, and that seems to be a vehicle that actually is very effective in getting the message out to residents. But as a consequence, I had a lot of negative feedback about the direction that we're taking this particular intersection in, and I would appreciate that if it's possible that that it be added to the minutes that staff will respond in the event that we find that the solution that is being proposed is not working. I have tried to share with residents that this is something that has been agreed in the terms of the OLT appeal agreement, that we will move forward on this basis, but that if it proves that it doesn't work, and I do have my own suspicions, as I said last week about that we record it and we can come back to the fact that we will look at this again if there is a problem. 9.9.
9.9, that was just clarification for the clerk.
Yeah, if the minutes, through you, Mr. Mayor, if the minutes could be clarified to reflect that comment that I think General Manager Walton made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Walton, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. Certainly what Councillor Bell puts out there is actually included in the report. There's an actual monitoring program proposed here over a 5-year period to get baseline data and then carry that through for a period of time to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences to what is proposed here, and then to bring forward solutions if there is. So certainly that's no issue for us to do that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Which takes us to number 9 on the agenda, which is the staff reports. 9.1, Curtis Ave North reconstruction. Are there any questions? Looking for a mover. Councillor McAlpine and Councillor Coleman. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.2 is the Paris Lawn Bowling Club Replacement Tender Award. Any questions for Kathy? Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to ask some questions in regards to, with the bids, there was a 300,000 differential between the lowest bid and the next lowest bid. There was also the comment in there that the lowest bid that it's proposed to be awarded to was incomplete. So I'd just be curious whether or not that raises any red flags in regards to whether or not we could see unexpected costs or anything we should be wary of, given that there seemed to be a median, the rest of the bids seemed to be around, and this seemed to be significantly under and incomplete.
Thank you. Ms. Ballantyne is out in the virtual world there. Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. We did review the bids. The reason the bid was incomplete at the time that the architect reviewed it is that the unit pricing page had been submitted 24 hours late. Upon review, though, we had no concerns with the fees and the unit prices that were submitted. In regards to the bid, we did ask the proponent to check his numbers again to make sure there was nothing missed. And they were confident that the number they submitted was sufficient to do the job that we tendered out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Kathy. Kathy, when will this be completed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the plan is to start demolition in September, and that we would prepare the construction project to continue through the fall and winter months to be ready for the spring of 2024 for the season to begin in mid to late May.
Thank you.
Councillor Garneau.
Thank you. Through you, just wondering, seeing that the contract was awarded based on 70% low bid, and then there was 30% for other criteria, what that other criteria was and how this low bid scored in that regard, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We did look at all of the supervisory staff. That was one of the criteria, as well as references were heavily in that 30% as well. And we did check their references and all came back satisfactory to our level of satisfaction.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Are there any other questions to staff? Thank you. Any other questions, period? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Oh, okay. Sorry, I need a mover. Councillor House, Councillor Oakley. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Takes us to 9.3, which is the Administration Penalties Bylaw. Adam's here if there's any questions. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Pierce. Any questions for Adam on 9.3? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While Adam's walking, and I know it's early days, but the positions of screening officer, hearing officer, at this point in time, we don't know what kind of time commitment, so we're assigning that to existing staff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. We'll take the time once we have a fuller assessment of the volume of appeals to determine the amount of staff required for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Adam? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Adam. Adam, I see that in the first paragraph of the bylaw where we talk about penalties, that the amount would be remitted to the Victims Justice Fund managed by the Ministry of the Attorney General. I remember when we talked about the costs of a speed enforcement program that we concluded that we could make it cost neutral. How do we recover our costs that make this neutral?
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the speeding fine is remitted back to the county, and the victim component is a common theme with any, with say an existing speeding ticket. That is charged to the individual. We will collect that and remit that. So that's just a revenue in, revenue out, straight cost. We don't make any money off it. We don't lose any money off of it.
Councillor Bell?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so could you explain then how we recover the costs that we will incur in providing this whole service?
Oh, okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the speeding ticket, the fine, will be retained by the County of Brant. So when the administrative penalty is issued, that speeding ticket, that fine amount, so say for example 11 over would be $75, the County of Brant will retain that $75. The victim component is a percentage of that in addition to the $75. Sorry, that's where, yeah. It's in addition to the $75 based on a calculation provided by the Ministry of the Attorney General. Because we are effectively the service provider, we're responsible for collection and remittance. So collecting from the offender, remitting back to the province for their victim services fund.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions for me.
Yes, sir.
In section 2, the penalty order and administrative penalty, item 2 says a penalty order cannot be issued 23 days after the day on which the convention occurred. I'm not quite sure of the English there. Do you mean that if I come along on day 24, I can issue a penalty order, but not on day 23? Or is it, could you be clear about that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's directly from maybe the convention or contravention would be the proper term there. That's directly from the regulation. So in essence, they don't want municipalities collecting 90 days worth of offenses and then sending them out. So basically, if the offense occurs on the 23rd day, or you can issue within the 23rd day, because there's deemed to be 7 days from the date of issue to the actual service of the offense on the individual through the mail. So you have to calculate that in. So yes, on the 24th day, if it was 24 days ago, we would not be in a position to issue that penalty order.
Okay, thank you. Very final question. You say that it may take time to get this through the administrative system. What's your best guess at which time we can have automatic speed enforcement in action in the county?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I was a betting man, I would say probably first quarter to second quarter 2024. And I am incredibly disappointed to say that. The steps involved, so as I elaborated in the report, once this is approved, we can go to the MTO and request a contract. We have to have an officer designated through a training program. That training program occurs in September. I don't anticipate that and then that individual has to be, once they've completed the training, has to be designated by the Minister of Transportation as an officer to issue penalty orders associated with automated speed enforcement. So if you just continue to calculate the steps there, it does lead into a larger problem. That said, I think from my position, from a staff position, I will feel comfortable purchasing equipment once we have a pretty good indication from the Ministry of Transportation that they are going to accept the program as we propose it. So I think there could be opportunities to see cameras sooner. You won't see tickets sooner.
How are you feeling about that, Councillor Bell?
Mr. Mayor, I find it awfully disappointing. I think it seems to have taken, I think we're now in year 5 of this process. I have the sense that the provincial government really doesn't want this to happen. And they put as many barriers in the way as they possibly can at a time when it is one of the key concerns of residents throughout the county. So I'm disappointed, but not in Adam, by the way.
We're not disappointed in you, Adam.
Through Mr. If I might, I look back and you approved directing staff to really look into implementing a program. It was July 20th, 2020. So we are on 3 years. Yes, it is incredibly frustrating and disappointing. I guess all I can say, and I appreciate your comments about staff. We are working on this and we continue to try and thread the needle to make sure this happens. But we had the administrative penalties regulation came into effect on July 1st, 2022. Not a single municipality is using it yet. And we honestly have not been in a position to do so up until about 2 or 3 months ago. Any municipality in Ontario. So,
Councillor Hauser next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Adam, and as a reminder for the folks watching at home. So we're looking at second quarter next year, and this will be specific to community safety zones only, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that is correct.
So it's just community safety zones,
yes,
which is essentially school zones.
Yes,
for the most part. So just so people realize, we won't be doing this all over town. If you do happen to live in or near a school zone, you will be happy to know that the people speeding on that road are going to get nailed in their wallet. Further to Councillor Bell's question about timing and your answer about, we might have the cameras up before we can actually send the feeds. Can we put up signs early next year? Because I think it's kind of like if there's a sign on your house that says you have a high-tech security system, there's some preventative communication there. And I'm just wondering if early in 2024, we might establish some signs that say, welcome to the County of Brant, this is a photo radar community.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly in terms of examining something like you've just suggested, yes. In terms of the signage regarding automated speed enforcement cameras, highly regulated by the province. And the placement is also highly regulated. We have to install coming soon signs 90 days in advance of a system being in place. The second the system is removed, the signage must come down. It's unlike, say, for example, a red light camera, where a red light camera doesn't have to be operational, or an automated speed enforcement system has to be operating in that area in order for that sign to be up to say that there is a camera.
Thanks for that clarification.
Councillor Howes, you just exposed us to everyone watching. You could maybe make your own signs, Councillor Howes. Okay, well, thank you, Adam. Are there any other questions for Adam? All those in favor? Opposed? With disappointment, not in you. Thank you. Next on the agenda is 9.4, which is the two Heathers, emergency grant report and additional grant requests. Are there any questions to those? None? I need it on the floor. Councillor Pierce, and seconded by Councillor Garneau. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.5, and that's our 2022 surplus. Heather, tell us how you did that. No. There's questions on how you did that. Just keep doing it. Are there any questions for Heather? 2022 surplus. I need it on the floor. Councillor Coleman and Councillor Garneau. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.6, the budget direction, and also the Heathers. I need someone to put down the floor for discussion. Councillor Pierce and Councillor Bell. It's now on the floor. Are there any questions? Councillor Bell, you're first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the recommendation, it says that as per council direction during the 2023 budget approval, the capital levy shall start at 14,701,000. If I recall correctly, to either Heather, that was the 2021 number of 12.3 million plus the 2022 inflation that we didn't include. Is that correct?
She's shaking her head yes, but she's on her way to the podium.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's the 2021 capital levy plus the amount we pulled from the Brown County Power Fund, not the inflation.
So, and if I may go on there, Mr. Mayor, so the starting point, more correctly, would it not be that 14.7 plus the 2023 inflation?
I did not interpret the resolution that way, but we can.
Well, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I think that would follow the logic we had agreed. I mean, 2022 was a special case, which we resolved in 2023 by taking money from the Brant County Power funding. But the logic says we should have 2021 number, 2022 inflation, 2023 inflation. That's the starting point. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn it over to the other Heather.
We took this directly from what council passed as a resolution, was that this would be our starting point. In council's resolution, it didn't speak to another inflationary increase. Because this budget is going to be largely driven by things like the long-term financial plan and the asset management plan, this is really just a starting point. If we could look at inflationary increases or talk about where we go from there once we get into January. But we just took this is word for word what council had approved back in February, was that this would be our starting point.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, then I would like to make a motion that modifies this recommendation to reflect the logic that has been applied by this council for the last however many years apart from 2022.
Seeking a seconder.
That would mean the inflation would be included.
Councillor Miller. So it's on the floor. Is there any discussion to Councillor Bell? Councillor Miller?
I think it does bear a little bit more discussion. The 14 million, my understanding is to fund our assets properly, to maintain them. It requires approximately, I thought we were in the $20 million range. Where's that other monies come from? Does that come from development charges? I don't know. But am I correct on it takes around 20 million to fund our assets now?
Well, at this point, I mean, we are waiting with bated breath for the asset management plan, which is going to change the number we need to maintain our assets now. Our old asset management plan, I mean, it's beyond its term that we had allocated for, so we will be looking forward. It's going to be a new number, and I'm not saying that the 14.7 is going to be sufficient to fund the asset management plan or even where we want to get to, but we just needed a starting point to get moving on this budget.
Okay, so let me clarify, Mr. Mayor, if I could, through to Heather. The 14,700,000. Anyways, the capital levy, is that the only monies we have, or is that the only monies we're looking to fund to maintain our infrastructure?
We'll have the gas tax funding. There's always some provincial development charges for road-related projects. We go through and we'll allocate as much as we can to other sources, but the 14.7 is what our capital levy input is. So the total program will be higher than 14.7.
Okay.
That will be 14.7 input from the levy.
Okay, I think development charges are for new builds, but I think the gas tax one, yeah, that helps maintain infrastructure. So, okay, so we don't quite need to raise 20 million to maintain all assets, but I bet it's pretty darn close. Okay, thank you, Heather.
Any other Councillor Chambers?
Just, I think the important word to look at in that clause is the word start. If the recommendation says approve the capital levy at 14, it'd be different. And I might be concerned and I might want to modify it. But since it's simply a starting point, we can modify it to another starting point if you want, but I think it's redundant and unnecessary.
Any other comments? Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, am I still able to ask just a generic comment about the report now? Or
Sure.
Raise my window. Okay. I was just curious if it's not too burdensome on staff. If last year we saw a statistic on the increase for a median home as we went through this process, and there was a comment made in regards to that's not necessarily reflective of what the average agricultural property may see or commercial. If we could include in those statistics the median home, median agricultural property, and median commercial property, just so we have a better understanding of the increases we're talking about across the various property owners.
Thank you. I think we've already asked for that some time ago. I thought we did, just because, did we not ask for that, Heather, before?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if it was specifically asked, but we have made a note in our files that that's something that we should be looking at presenting. Maybe not the very first meeting, but as we get closer to the actual numbers.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Madam Clerk, if you could read Councillor Bell's amendment. It's on the floor. It has a seconder.
Through you, Mayor Bailey, the amendment, as I heard it, is that clause number 3 be amended to reflect the logic that has applied to the budget process prior to the 2022 budget year.
Any other questions? Call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. All right. So now we don't have to vote on the original amendment because it's amended. Moving on to 9.7. This is the which passed. Motion is amended. Okay. Motion is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.7, this is the approval of the special events Drink Fest, which has been floating around all week since the mudslide of 2023. Let's get it on the floor first. Councillor Oakley's putting it on the floor, seconded by Councillor Pierce. Discussion. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There has been a lot of work happening down at Lions Park to try and get ready for this. Can we just get an update as to the latest status? I saw it the other day, it looked good, but I'm just curious, once with all the new sod and stuff, once we get a few thousand people on it, what that's gonna be like.
Yeah. Who wants to
Dancing,
speak to this?
drunk.
Zach or Allison?
Thank you, through you, your worship. I won't go into the details of it, but it is moving along quite quickly, and we're happy with the progress they've made. At this time, Lozani maintains that it is going to be a suitable location, still in Lions Park, to hold the event. But we are looking at contingency plans in the event that doesn't happen. However, we are expecting at this time that it will be ready in time for the event.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to be clear on the contingency plan, can someone explain which part of Greens Lane they'll be using if we have to use that?
To you, Mr. Mayor, and we do hope it is a contingency plan and just the backup plan, but we would put it on the parking area. So the fields would not be impacted by this event. It would just make use of the parking area at Greens Lane.
And that's clear. That's clear to them, is it?
Yeah, staff have had numerous conversations with the event organizer about this.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Communication. Grand River Chamber of Commerce request for a second council representative on their board. They've asked for Councillor Oakley, just because Councillor Howes hasn't got the time really to give them right now. You're open to that, Councillor Oakley?
Through the mayor, yes.
Yeah. So do I need a motion for that? Need a motion to put it on the floor. Councillor Howes, seconded by Councillor Bell. Any other discussion? No? All those in favor? Congratulations, Councillor Oakley. Another job. 10.2 is the unassumed subdivision. Who from staff can comment on this? Allison?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Bailey. I have indications from General Manager of Development Services that a report will be coming forward in September from staff on this.
Councillor Miller?
Yeah, no, I was going to move that to receive, and that this communication remainder also be referred to staff's report.
Seeking a seconder to receive, Councillor Oakley. All those in favor? Thank you. No resolutions or notice of motions. No other business specified. Does anyone have any other business just because? Seeing none. Councillor Howes, you're going to take us in camera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau. The Brant County Council convened in camera to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, DME Board of Director Recruitment, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to negotiations regarding the new main library project update, litigation and potential litigation, and a advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. OLT Appeal 409 German School Road, OLT Appeal 70 to 72 Beverly Street, OLT Appeal 282A Highway 5, and OLT Appeal 305 King Edward Street.
Wonderful. We have it on the floor. We have it second. All those in favor to go in camera? We're in camera. Okay, so we're back in open session. Before we ratify then, Councillor Coleman, do you want to speak to the delegation from earlier this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would move that we look at changing our direction on this application. This is, we did have an earlier delegation here talking about promoting business in the county. And this is what this is trying to grow one business and another one selling off a piece of property that's landlocked. And if we go through the severance the way they are asking for it, what the conditions put on it, that if the zoning doesn't change, the severance doesn't go through. It's as simple as that. And the landowner on Papel Road is evident that we go through for the severance first, and I'm moving that as a motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Looking for a seconder. Councillor Chambers is your seconder. And any other conversation to that, other than it seems a little backwards, Councillor Coleman, but as long as we all know that and agree to that. Does anyone have any objections to that? It's on the floor as a seconder. Councillor Miller, you okay?
Yeah, I actually did look at the properties and, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, any other conversation, comments? Call the vote, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Ratifying 13-2, Councillor Bell.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pierce, that Jay Aurora and Dave Levac be appointed to the Board of Directors for Brant Municipal Enterprises, Inc., each for a 4-year term.
Any comments, concerns? Call the vote, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Which now takes us to bylaws. Councillor Howes, you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that bylaws 83-23 to 90-23 be now read a first time.
All those in favor of the first reading of the bylaws? Second reading, please, Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that bylaws 83-23 to 90-23 be read a second time and all clauses and preambles be adopted.
Are there any questions for the second reading of the bylaws? Seeing none, all those in favor? If you could finish it off with the third reading, please, Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that bylaws 83-23 to 90-23 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
All those in favor of the third reading? Opposed? Carried, which takes us to number 15, which is adjournment. And everyone have a good August. See you in September.